So when I was a little kid, it quickly became clear to me that the other kids on the playground were not working with the same imagination that I was. As the child of two parents that both had to work until 5, I would be stuck at school in this program called CARE until they came to pick me up, and it was amazing. There were just a bunch of other kids to play with and a bunch of toys like Legos and no-ends and dollhouses and the like. And it was there I really fostered my first close group of friends, because I would always come up with the funnest games to play. Epic quests to slay the wizard that turned the floor to lava. And the only way to win was to push him into the lava. And by him, I mean me, because I was always the bad guy. I loved being the bad guy. It was the most fun. And as the years went by, word caught on. I'm this weird little kid that loved pushing other kids off of things to fake burn alive in the lava. And eventually, every recess, almost the whole class would play whatever game I could think of. Some with storylines so complicated we had to like put them on pause and finish them tomorrow or a week from now, like friggin' Avengers. I made a weird little name for myself amongst all the other 9-year-olds, to the point where they started looking up to me, and they thought, like, since I could orchestrate all that, I must have all the answers. So they would ask me, like, why the sky is blue? And of course I didn't know. But I was so good at making things up, I just kept doing that. So I would tell them the sky's blue because it reflects the ocean. And that was good enough for a 9-year-old, so they believed me. We're very gullible creatures, human beings. Innocent enough when you're only 9, but gullible adults can do some very sinister things. Why are we like this? And if it's so easy for us to fall to delusions, why did we make it so far as a species in the first place? Well, Yuval Noah Harari has compiled quite the elegant explanation for that. In Sapiens, he discusses just what makes us human and what separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom. Some people say it's our use of tools, but no. There's a myriad of creatures, from ravens to fish, that know how to use tools. Some say it's our self-awareness, but wrong again. Elephants are self-aware, dolphins, apes can all recognize themselves in a mirror. So what about our communication skills? Okay, we're getting closer, but we have to be more specific, because the ability to communicate is shared by basically every creature on the planet, from ants to whales. It doesn't really matter what you say. I mean, a parrot can repeat anything that Einstein has ever said. It's about how you understand what you're saying. For instance, he uses the example of green monkeys. This blew me away. So green monkeys can warn each other about different threats. They have a specific cry for if there's an eagle, and they all look to the skies and scatter about. And then they have another specific cry for if one sees a lion, and they all freak out and run up a tree. And you know, they played the specific call in a lab, and the monkeys all exhibited the same behavior. So very useful for survival purposes, but also very different from what a human is capable of doing. A human can see a lion and then go back to the tribe and tell them all that this morning by the bend in the river, I saw a lion tracking a herd of bison. And then the tribe can decide what to do about that, instead of just a natural instinct to run or look up. So what makes us different from the monkeys? Well, compared to other animals, humans are born prematurely. Many of their vital systems are still underdeveloped. A colt can trot shortly after birth. A kitten leaves its mother to forage on its own when it's just a few weeks old. Human babies are helpless, dependent for many years on the elders for assistance, protection, and education. Most mammals emerge from the womb like glazed earthenware emerging from a kiln. Any attempt at remolding will only scratch or break them. Humans emerge from the womb like molten glass from a furnace. They can be spun, stretched, and shaped with a surprising degree of freedom. This is why today we can educate our children to be Christian or Buddhist, capitalist or socialist, warlike or peace-loving. So every other animal on the planet is born into its nature. A lion must learn to hunt a gazelle or it dies. A dolphin must learn to swim immediately or it drowns. But human beings of any other animal on the planet live the most diverse range of lifestyles. because we're born with a few instincts, yes, in the oldest parts of the mind, but there is still a great swath of our psyche, of our nature, still yet to be determined, to be taught to us upon our birth. It seems counterintuitive, like why would we want to be born early? So fragile. And a single mother on the African savannah, that's basically a death sentence. You can't forge enough food just for yourself, let alone your baby. Yet we survive because we were incentivized to work together, further growing our brain. And also, I feel like the biggest part of this is that being born early is like being adapted to be the most adaptable to your environment. I mean, in that regard, it's almost like a pinnacle of evolution. That, paired with our body plans and forward-facing eyes and 2 hands with 5 digits, we're able to interact with the world like no other creature on the planet has ever been able to before. Maybe even the galaxy. I mean, we're really special. But we absolutely wouldn't have been able to make it without each other, without learning how to gossip properly and growing the size of our tribes. Gossip is one of those ancient fixations of the brain that we see in apes and our other nearby ancestors. I mean, it's obvious because we're still obsessed with who's sleeping with who and who hates and who has a feud between each other and who's honest and who's a cheat. And having to store all this information promoted a larger brain size because, as Harari says, the amount of information that one must obtain to store in order to track the ever-changing relationships of even a few dozen individuals is staggering. In a band of 50, there are 1,225 one-on-one relationships and countless more complex social combinations. That takes a big brain to comprehend. But as I said, that's really an older part of the brain. What really set us above the rest was the newer parts of the brain. What Harari points to as our true cognitive revolution is, by some stroke of fate or strangeness, we gained the ability to believe in fictions. Now, let me make the distinction here. I don't mean lies. All lies are fiction, yes, but not all fiction are lies. Not by the same meaning anyway. Plus, other animals lie to each other, so we know that lies are a much simpler thing. Those green monkeys from earlier, for example. If you have a bunch of them sitting around eating bananas under a tree, and a green monkey from an enemy troop or a neighboring troop comes and sees that and is hungry, it'll shout out, "Look out, a lion!" in whatever monkey speech. And those monkeys will all run up the tree, leaving their bananas unguarded, and this monkey will come in and have his fill. That is documented to have happened, and that's not the only example of other animals lying to each other. So lies are not what I mean by fiction. What I mean is, or Harari means rather, humans didn't just gain the ability to warn each other about lions, they gained the ability to claim that the lion is the guardian spirit of the tribe. That's so cool, guys. I mean, is that not cool? In the wake of the cognitive revolution, gossip helped Homo sapiens to form larger and more stable bands. But even gossip has its limits. Sociological research has shown that the maximum natural size of a group bound by gossip is about 150 individuals. Most people can neither intimately know nor gossip effectively about more than 150 human beings. And just by comparison, for chimps that number is only about 25. So if there's a particularly fertile valley back in the day, able to sustain a population of 500 Homo sapiens, made up of multiple tribes that might all be related, but they're such distant relatives no one remembers, what's to keep them all from killing each other? It's too big, there's too many people to make a stable group and agree upon who's the leader and who should mate with who and blah blah blah. Well, if they all believe that the lion is the guardian spirit of that valley and all their tribes, boom, instant culture. Instantly a reason not to kill each other, and one better, a reason to work together. It's the belief in fiction that uplifted us from being just like any other animal to being the most powerful animal on the planet. The ability to imagine things as a collective. And here might be the uncomfortable part. I know I had to sit with it for a while. We're not just talking about cavemen and archaic tribes. The people that lived The Homo sapiens that lived then are us. If we could bring a shaman here today from 30,000 years ago, we could learn their language and they ours. We'd be able to explain to them everything from Alice in Wonderland to the paradoxes of quantum physics. And they could teach us how their people view the world. We're the same, which means that our modern day society is built on the same rules as theirs. Every single organization with more than 150 members is built on fictions. That includes not only all the religions from east to west, but states as well. Nations, laws, money, corporations, all of it. It's all fake. Even one's own sense of justice. These are all things that can't be measured and can't be found in nature. There's no justice particle to capture in a particle accelerator. There's no temperature of justice to be read. All it is a feeling, an idea, a non-tangible fiction. Very different from something like medicine, math, and science. Experiments can be set up to measure how much viral DNA you need to inject into someone to inoculate them instead of give them the virus. Or measure how insulating CO2 is to a planet's atmosphere. And no matter what language you speak or what symbols you use, a squared plus b squared will always equal c squared. Drawing from personal experience, this is very different from, say, Christianity, where even within the Bible, there are two wildly different accounts of Jesus' birth by Luke and Matthew, neither of whom were there. And there are 4 different accounts of the resurrection. Happy Easter, everyone. I'm not saying Jesus didn't exist. I'm not saying I don't agree with his messages of peace and empathy and self-sacrifice. He is, in my own personal sense of justice, a great role model for individuals and society at large. But hopefully you can see how his story is hardly the same level of objective truth as medicine, science, and math. Harari goes into depth on how corporations are fictional as well. If Jeff Bezos were to die and all the Amazon warehouses were to suddenly Thanos snap out of existence, Amazon itself would still exist. Or I should say exist, because the company isn't really made up of the bricks and the mortars that the buildings are made of, or even the people that work there. It's in our heads. Likewise, America. America, fuck yeah! What makes up America? McDonald's, fuck yeah! Walmart, fuck yeah! Starbucks, fuck yeah! Disney World, fuck yeah! Is it the soil? No. Is it sushi? Fuck yeah! Taco Bell, fuck yeah! Internet, fuck yeah! Slavery! Is it the Constitution? I mean, well, say Nick Cage broke into the National Archives and stole it and burnt all the copies that we have. America would still exist because it's an idea, it's in our heads. It's a shared illusion, a shared fiction. I mean, and just like the Bible, we squabble over what constitutional actually means anyway. You get Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell in the same room together, they're gonna give you 2 very different definitions of what is constitutional and what isn't. Because it's all fake, it's just made up. I mean, but nonetheless, and that's really the key here. The fiction that is the Constitution is the keystone to our shared culture here, kept alive generation to generation. But that doesn't mean it's any more real than the shared illusion, the agreed upon rules that me and my other 9-year-old friends all used to play on the playground. This sort of collective imagination is magical in a sort of way. I mean, it made us the most dominant species on the planet, so there must be something to it. Just because it's not real doesn't mean it doesn't have any merit. It's extraordinarily advantageous, but not always. It didn't help the cultists that drank the Kool-Aid at Jamestown. And the fiction that the Nazis believed certainly didn't help move the species forward in any way. So if there's anything to take away from Sapiens, we all believe in fictions. It's what makes us who we are, it's natural, and it's necessary. But it's also healthy to be skeptical of said fictions. Question why? What purpose are they serving? And are they still applicable to the modern world in which we live? But I can't make that judgment for you. That's wholly subjective. I only feel it's my job to remind you that there is the possibility you might have been the bad guy all along, pushing the other kids into the lava just for the laughs. So if you haven't yet, I highly recommend reading Sapiens. It is a necessary tool in our growing arsenal against misinformation. There are 11 pages of citations, tiny little font in the back here, for further research from peer-reviewed journals, well-documented mountains of evidence. But I just personally like to think of it as chapter 1 in the user manual for humanity. Specifically, this concept of fictions is just very revealing about who we are as individuals and who we are as a species. It's understanding how we see the world and how we got here can only bring us closer to understanding this strange and beautiful reality we all find ourselves in.